My name is Jim Winston. I'm a psychologist, a clinician with 30 years of experience in the field of addiction. So we all know how technology is changing how we interact with each other. It's replacing much of our face-to-face interactions with through-a-screen engagement. This has profound implications for society at large, but most critically for our kids and adolescents because of their rapidly developing cognitive and neurobiological capacities. The last 15 years have seen smartphones woven into the fabric of all of our lives. I'm sure we're all carrying them around in our pockets right now. In the US, roughly 80 to 85% of 9 to 13-year-olds now have a smartphone. That's roughly double what it was 15 years ago. Kids are getting phones at younger and younger ages as well. Right now in the US, it's about age 10 or 4th grade. I'm sure we've all heard about the harmful effects of too much time spent on social media. But today I want to talk about the digital drug, really, or the smartphone itself. Adolescents are spending an enormous amount of time on devices, roughly 8 or 9 hours a day. Think about that. That's almost 60 hours a week. These smartphones are strategically designed to capture and hold attention. They're pulling for us all the time. They're not neutral devices. They're architecturally constructed to be hyper-stimulating with a nearly limitless supply of digital stimuli in a parallel universe that has enormous addictive potential. So those 60 hours a week, that's time kids aren't doing other things, like playing outside with friends, interacting with their parents and their family, being in nature, doing exercise, participating in sports. We call this an opportunity cost. Studies show that adolescents are spending roughly 65% less time with their friends than they did a decade ago. They're sleeping less, in particular if the phone is in their room at night. And we now know that sleep has a huge impact on brain development. Girls in particular are retreating from the real world and sinking into the digital one. Social anxiety is on the rise. From a clinical perspective, because when kids begin to experience uncomfortable emotions or anxiety, they pick up the phone and in that way medicate those internal feelings. Not only does this develop an addictive relationship to the phone, but more importantly, it allows them to avoid developing the requisite social skills that are required to make face-to-face interactions more comfortable. Withdrawal symptoms, otherwise known as tantrums in young kids, when the device is taken away. There's a huge increase in kids reporting that they want to get off their devices, but they can't. All of this is really addiction at its core. Access to a drug is a critical variable in the development of any addictive process. Smartphones' portability not only increases their addictive potential, but makes them a qualitatively different technological advancement. All of this has huge implications for kids' emotional and brain health, given what we now understand about the direct connection between sustained attentional focus and neurobiological development. The adage is where your attention goes, your brain structure grows. The evolutionary protocol of our ancient brain hardware system, the thing we all carry around in our heads and have for the past 30,000 years, requires visceral face-to-face input over the critical neurological years to unfold in a healthy way. This is especially critical during the adolescent years, roughly 9 to 14, because the brain goes through a massive restructuring process. It sheds old neurobiological connections that are no longer useful and begins to form a highway system, a neurobiological highway system for the rest of your lives. A decade into this tech social experiment, and the results are really hard to ignore, especially for a clinician. Increases in adolescent depression, up roughly 150% over the last 15 years. Increases in anxiety, in suicidal ideation. Increases in adolescent suicides. A huge rise in distractibility. Kids' attention is just fragmented, with its enormous implications not only for academic performance, but for the capacities of critical thinking and empathy as well. Some studies show that empathy has decreased 40% over the last 15 years. Reported increases in loneliness. Remember the U.S. Surgeon General's mental health crisis warning. It's time to wake up, in my opinion, for parents to refrain from giving their kids a phone until high school or at least 14, to give their brains a longer runway to develop in a more natural way, to break the hypnotic spell around the positive benefits of the phone, and to really stop putting the onus on kids to be able to manage something and control something that not only is strategically designed to be addictive, but is beyond their capacity to regulate. We don't let them into gambling halls until they're 21 for this exact reason, because the prefrontal cortex has not developed yet. For parents to begin to set boundaries with these digital drugs, like most do with violence and other overstimulating dynamics. For schools in particular to ban smartphones, and in that way help kids be able to focus on their academics and social connections, the two variables at the heart of our educational system. In my opinion, it's time to recognize the overwhelming addictive aspects of this new technology and to begin to take steps to protect children's neurobiological and emotional health, to put their well-being at the heart of the international narrative.